Hey guys, and welcome to Let's Look at Vessel. This is a platformer slash puzzler. Just came out on Steam earlier last week, and it's running for about 15 bucks right now, so this is kind of, as far as indie games go, in the premium price point, although you do sometimes see games higher than that. Usually they're in the $5 to $10 range, so this is a step above. Anyway, we are going to avoid talking about the game too much to start out. I am just going to start a new game, and then hopefully you'll be able to figure it out as we go. This is very much a puzzler in the same vein. You could almost call it like a physics-based puzzler. It's a little similar to a game like Trine, but not quite exactly the same. We will have a little bit of an opening cutscene right here. Well, I will get a chance to explain the very basic mechanics of the game. Essentially, we play as an inventor or a scientist, and you can see him right here. And this opening cutscene is kind of going over the invention of these things called fluons. Fluors. Oh man, I definitely should have looked that up before starting. But anyway, and what these are essentially automatons that... fluid-based puzzle-solving gimmick is the way that I'm going to describe it. You can see the way they work right here. You can generate them, and then they step on switches for you, and essentially that's how it goes. The story, there's not a whole lot of story that I've seen so far, is essentially that this inventor invented these, and now they've become, like, commonplace in industrial work and such. And I think they're trying to get at the fact that maybe they've gone a little bit rogue, and they're becoming sentient. But there hasn't been much of a story so far, but I've only played about maybe 45 minutes of the game so far, so you'll get to see some more here. I am still not in control of my character. We're still technically in opening cutscene land, but in a second we will get to take control. So you can see that some water falls out of that bucket. This is going to hit the switch, which will generate this first little bubbly guy here. Kind of creepy looking, I'm not gonna lie. I think it's the single eye that gets me, and also the fact that they can be crushed so easily, as you'll see. This guy's a big jerk face, and he steps on a switch there. And now I'm actually in control. And the way the game's tutorialized and tells the story is through these journal entries. So fluoro, that's it, not fluon. Anyway, so essentially right now we have to go back to the lab and get the equipment before the fluoro causes any more havoc, so that's going to be easy enough. Now, this is just WASD movement with my mouse moving this cursor around, which I hope you can see, although I haven't really had to use the cursor too much. And the space bar to jump. And you know, honestly, the controls don't feel that responsive to me, and I know that sounds horrible, but like I just innately dislike any game that automatically maps the spacebar as jump in WASD. Sorry, I should say 2D games. I feel like W should be jump, but it's a minor complaint. But anyway, these early parts right here, the reason that I'm showing you the very, very earliest part of the game is, one, not to avoid spoiling anything, because, you know, with a puzzle game, the fun is in finding the solutions out for yourself. But in watching a video, sometimes it can be infuriating, because you're like, I just moved the box over here! Make the boxes fall down at the same time so you don't get hit by the lasers. That's a shout out to anyone who watched my Stealth Bastard video, but also, yes, I have completed these puzzles, so I actually know what's going on. And the game actually does a very good job of not explicitly tutorializing anything, or not explicitly tutorializing very much anyway. Instead, the way they do it is by actually just letting you observe what happens and then divining the rules for yourself, which is kind of neat. But we haven't really solved any puzzles yet ourselves. We're just getting used to the basic mechanics of the game. This switch. Oh, let go. Get down to this bucket over here, and this is basically where the game's introducing that it's totally physics-based, so that we're gonna solve it, you know, not through point-and-click adventure style. We're gonna solve this with our own noggins, which is kind of nice. Should be able to get through this early part very quickly, and then we'll get into some of the more advanced puzzles that I've seen so far, although I haven't really been, you know, too put off by any of the puzzles. The difficulty seems pretty low, at least early on. Now, this is one thing I really dislike about the game, is that the animation just looks silly. Like, for me to turn this, it also feels awkward. I have to get on it with E, and then I use W, A, and D to move myself around in a circle. Also, of course, trying to gain momentum while doing so, which, you know, your hand does not naturally move in that way. Especially when you're holding down the E key with your index finger. Then you're, like, using your ring fingers to hit all these buttons. It's a relatively minor complaint in the whole scheme of things. As we get over here, thankfully there's no fall damage. And we should be able to grab onto this, and this will allow us to learn one of the very basic but also very fundamental mechanics of the game, that is generating these fluoros. So you can see there's a turbine up there, and essentially we are going to have to use those turbines non-stop. You can also see the mechanic of the Fluoro here, which is essentially, and I'm going to stop saying essentially, good God, that he will jump to any switch that has a light on. So the way that we're eventually going to direct these guys is not going to be like under our control, like in a StarCraft micro type of sense. We're actually going to indirectly do that by hitting these switches, which will cause them to move in one direction or another and hopefully accomplish a goal for us. Aesthetically, I really like the way the game looks, with the exception of the animations when you're like interacting with some of the objects here. Like this looks okay, but still kind of awkward. But when you're doing the circular thing, it just does not work. Alright, so here, we're just going to move this little metal thing back until it's hovering right over this guy. And we're going to crush him. They're very fragile. In fact, they're almost too fragile. In the sense that you can just walk into one and it'll die, which is kind of a pain in the ass for some of these puzzles. But anyway, we're starting to get into a little bit of legitimate puzzle territory, I should say. So of course we have a loading screen, although I haven't seen too many so far. Also like the way the game sounds. I think it sets a very good atmosphere. Now this is kind of a cool puzzle mechanic that you don't see very often. If I just walk through this normally, well now I've solved it. If you just walk through it normally, it'll switch from green to red and that'll block your path. You gotta do kind of like a little stutter step, and then you can get through and make it happen. And this puzzle could actually be a little bit tricky. Those light switches, I think, are just to let you know how to do this. So you can see these three switches here control these three gates at the bottom, but we need all three to be green to pass. So the first thing we need to do is make all three of these red. So let's start with the one over here. How are we gonna do this? Okay, we're gonna... there's one. That one was easy. And then, just like that. Okay. Then we can just run through it. So, a lot of the puzzles in this game are basically... I'm not sure what kind of word you could use to describe it, but you have to set up all the elements in advance and then kind of put them all into fruition. Like, you're setting conditions that will make it possible for you. Almost like you're like a domino, if that makes any sense. Hopefully, that will make more sense as we progress here. So, we're going to use our little water wheel. We'll turn the switch here. This looks a lot harder than it is because I believe once we get up to the top here, it just, yeah, the door just won't close on us, so there's no risk to us. And one complaint that I do have is that it seems like a lot of these puzzles right off the bat are too easy. They're just like go into the switches. Just flip the switches and you'll basically solve it. You can't help but solve it. So this just tells us, I'm going to take that off the screen so I can talk, because I like the sound of my own voice. This tells us that this is a turbine, and the turbine will allow us to create more fluoros. So what we're going to do, spin this around. It looks like Team America puppetry. And that switch at the bottom has gotten popped up, which means we can create a fluoro just by jumping on this. And then because there is that switch over there in the top right with the light on, the fluoro will automatically go to it. I wonder if I can create a second one here. It wouldn't actually do me any good. Maybe. Let's see if I can do that. Yeah, I can. Alright. I think I only made one the first time I came through here. Not that it makes any difference at all. But anyway, those fluoros will automatically be attracted to any light switches. So now, we get our first taste of actually using them to solve a puzzle. You can see by hitting this, I hit this light, which causes the fluoro to come over here and step on the switch. Now, I can just hit this other one myself, and I think that'll make it possible. Yeah, that'll make it easy for me to get through here. But later on, the elements do get a little bit more complicated, although they've never gotten like quite to the heights or the difficulties of a game like Braid, at least so far. And this game definitely takes a lot of influence from Braid, like a lot of the way that it tries to just not tutorialize things, but let you figure things out by yourself. Also, to a certain extent, the art style, as you can see, although graphically it is kind of dissimilar. Now, what we're going to do in this room is just hit these light switches, or alternate hitting these light switches, which will cause this thing to turn, and it'll slowly get out of the way. It's still go. Okay. Now we don't want it to... Oh, what is going on here? We don't want it to accidentally go the other direction by spinning that wheel. So we're going to put him back through this way. What is that horrible sound? I feel like the gear sound has just gotten turned on for some reason. And then, do this again. And this should get the gear enough out of the way so that I can fall down. And we'll start to get into a little bit more advanced puzzle tree here, because I believe this is the last kind of early puzzle that we have to deal with. Ah, yes. Now we have an extended hovering sequence. Well, not hovering, but what would you call this? Like mechanical ziplining? It also kind of looks like the game takes some influence from Terraria. Maybe that's not fair. Maybe I'm projecting. Doesn't this kind of look Terraria-esque right here? I don't know. Again, kind of awkward for me because I have to hold down the E key. Oh, actually, I don't have to hold it down. Good to know, actually. My complaints from the earlier part are mitigated now. I apologize for that. So basically, I'm just going to swing back and forth on this thing. I'm pretty sure it's impossible to fail this part, but we need to bring this with us because there's going to be big jumps where we can't just jump it ourselves, so we need this thing to come. It's got a nice little lamp. It's going to illuminate things. I promise you that if you're playing this for yourself, it actually, you can see how fragile they are. I almost killed that guy right there. This is more atmospheric when you don't have some idiot like me talking over it the entire time. Like, I feel like this game has quite a deliberate artistic vision. Like, it's definitely presented as kind of like a cohesive product a la a Limbo or a Braid or what's another game similar that was very artistic, like a Loom, for example, to take a somewhat less prestigious example there. And it works better if you're doing it like quietly in the comfort of your own room. So now I think we turn this on, get on this thing. Oh, you know what we can do? I had such a hard time solving this puzzle before. Let's just crush this guy. Get him totally killed. I don't know why that grosses me out so much. Then we'll hit the switch. Then we'll get on this thing. Oh, hurry! Oh, man, come on. Don't do that to me. Well, we'll at least get this closer to the wall there. And then we'll crush him. I believe we could just take the ladder, but the reason that's not the actual solution to the puzzle is because we still need to get this thing through. I keep calling it this thing because I don't really know what it is. Oh, come on, make that jump. Hit the E key, there we go. I feel like this would play so much better with a controller, but it doesn't have any built-in, at least native controller support, and I haven't seen any controller options in the menu, but I'll check that before we stop this video, just in case I'm, you know, slandering the game right here. So far, I haven't talked about my impressions yet. My impressions of this game are that, you know, it seems decent, it seems fun, but I don't know if it's $15 fun. I mean, I realize in like the AAA sense, $15 is not a lot of money, but in the indie world, you can get whatever you want for $15. Easily. World of Goo, Braid, Super Meat Boy, all the AAA indie titles, and by AAA I mean, you know, as much marquee as like development money. Here, no, go the other way. There we go. And I don't know that this necessarily fits into the same category as like a, you know, a super high quality indie game like an Amnesia or a Super Meat Boy or a Braid, comparisons that are coming up quite frequently here. But you know, it seems interesting. I'll at least give it that, although not nearly as satisfying as I would like from a puzzle platformer. If you're looking for a puzzle platformer and you've played Braid, and you've got Trine 2, which is a game that I continually suggest, I think it's really overlooked because it came out, you know, around the same time as like Skyrim last year, so not a lot of people played it. Trine 2 is fantastic. Play that. Also $15, by the way. And and if you're beyond Trine 2, like you've already played Trine 2, play Roshard, or also called Rockhard, depending on who you're talking to. That's the game about the space miner. I haven't spent a whole lot of time with that, but that was a lot of fun, the limited amount of time I did spend with it for the video, and definitely I would say that is better than this, although I hate to say that. Also $15, that's available on Xbox Live Arcade and PSN. But this is by no means a bad game. It just, I don't know, it doesn't quite do it for me. Now, the way we're going to do this puzzle, again, one of the things I really do like about the game is the fact that you have to figure all this stuff out for yourself, and they introduce it to you very gradually, so you never feel overwhelmed. What we're going to do here is just continually generate fluoros, and they should be able to hit all 4 of these switches, which will allow me to actually open that door eventually. Jump onto this. Guy's got some really strong knees. And when that next one is generated, I'm going to hope that they don't run into each other, because if they do, that could result in them killing each other, which would be really bad. It is kind of neat how you indirectly solve these puzzles, as opposed to most games where they would just give you like a gun that controls gravity or something, and you would, or like a gun that grabs things, and then you would, use that to like put a box on these switches or something. Oh, I think I might have just killed that fluoro. And then yet another reminder for me to constantly turn my ringer off, so I don't have to deal with this nonsense during my videos. Oh well. It's a nice little touch. Add some character, don't you think? I thought I was going to crush that fluoro there. I think we'll do like 2 more puzzles, because we're about to get into some more interesting stuff. We've learned that we can generate fluoros and how to manipulate them. But the game gets a little bit more deep once we get into the next area. So we'll keep this going for a little bit longer. We have now generated 4 of them. So I can just hold down on this water jet. And if this hits the switch up at the very top, then we will actually get to where we need to go. What's wrong with this fluoro? Why isn't it jumping up on one of these switches? Okay, it's finally going to make it, I think. Take your sweet ass time, fluoro. There we go. This should do it right here. We've hit the switch, and that means we can move on. Now, this next mission is actually really cool, if it's the one I'm thinking of. But first, we gotta get in this elevator. Which actually reminds me of the start of EYE Divine Cybermancy, another Steam indie game that's almost nothing like this, but similarly starts with a really long elevator ride. And, man, that game is actually trash. I got a promo copy of that. Or it might have been a gift copy, and if it was, I'm sorry if you're the person who bought it for me and I'm trashing it, but, you know, that happens sometimes. That game was awful. So awful that I was way into that, like, Steam Christmas achievement nonsense that they did, trying to win that raffle back in December, and there was an achievement for EYE Divine Cybermancy. I already owned the game, and was like, nah, man, not worth it. Not worth playing the game again. Which is kind of sad, because, like, I had already... I bought games in the sale, got the achievement in the game, and then just never played them again. Didn't even make videos of them. So that was the lengths that I was willing to go to. But for EYE Divine Cybermancy, no way. But hey, this is let's look at a vessel, not Let's Hate EYE Divine Cybermancy, a video that will never exist, by the way. So again, we just manipulated some water there, which should allow us to get through here and move on to the next area. Actually, it might be a little bit further away than the next kind of evolution in gameplay. And if so, maybe we'll do one more puzzle, then we'll call it quits, because I don't want to show off too much more. Alright, this room is a pain in the ass. You know what? I'm actually going to cut it here. I think this has been a decent smattering of what goes on in EYE Divine Cybermancy, you know, in Vessel. Actually, I'm not going to cut it. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to load a game, and I'm going to load up my own save. A save from a little bit later in the game, and I'll show off one of the elements that they've introduced. I'm sure there's going to be other elements that I haven't seen so far. What I have now, if you look in the top left, is what's called a seed. So now I don't have to use turbines to create fluoros. I can actually carry like a fluoro seed with me, and if I put it in water, it'll grow into a fluoro that I can use to solve a puzzle. For example, we have this fountain here. I can just put my seed down, and then wait for the water to kind of clump around it, and it should grow. Yeah, it takes about 2 seconds. It'll come over here and step on these switches for me, and I can get into the next room. And they actually do some really cool things with this new seed technology that you have to deal with. I wish he would jump on these in order. It'd save me a little bit of time. But it does kind of change the way that things are going. Just like for a while you're just using the fluoros, and it's kind of a pain in the ass to use the turbines, because it takes like a minute for each one. This is way easier though. So this, we're just going to drop some seeds down these tubes. And then when I hit this switch right here, when I hit this... gotta jump. Jumping with the spacebar and then hitting E just doesn't feel natural. This will dump some water on them. They'll become full-grown fluoros. Man, they grow up so fast. And they should open both of these for me, and I can fall down into the next area. And that's where I'm gonna cut it. But I just wanted to show the game wasn't just like a one-trick pony. Check the controls. Oh, they do have gamepad controls. You just gotta, I guess, set it to it, because it didn't recognize my 360 controller naturally. But anyway, this has been Vessel. As always, thank you guys for watching. Currently available for 15 bucks on Steam. I think it's about like $13.50 because of the opening week sale. It's interesting, and if you like what you see here, you're probably gonna like the game, but I'm not sure that it really deserves that price tag. This is a game where I would say, you know, if you're interested, it might be a good idea to wait for like the summer sale, or if you've got the patience, like a doctor, perhaps waiting until the Christmas sale, because this will probably go on sale. And you know, when you price your indie game at $15, I understand why games get priced at that, especially like considering the quality of the assets in this versus a lot of indie games. But it's really got to knock it out of the park. Like, games like Super Meat Boy and Braid come out, again, they're going to make the comparison because those are like the two of the giants. And people are still like, 15 bucks? I don't know, man. 15 bucks is a lot for an indie game. So, you know, you're going to have to deal with that when you price yourself out of that like $10 range. And it's unfortunate, but it is also true. Anyway, this has been Vessel. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.